The Healing Power of Thought, Murdo MacDonald-Bayne. The question is, how can we get the best results from the sanctuary? We all know the power of thought, and we talk about sending thoughts of love and healing to others in need. Many are helped and healed, some even claim that a miracle has been performed. But there is no miracle, there is only cause and effect. Yet there are some who do not get results and wonder why. Now, it is not just a matter of tuning in by the one who is the sufferer, nor is it a question of sending thoughts to someone who is suffering or not suffering. It is a question of thought itself. Can anyone be helped whose mind is filled with negativeness, or can anyone help another if they themselves are uncertain of themselves? If you tune in with expectancy, knowing that the presence is within you, you will receive the help and strength of all the thoughts that are being poured forth of a similar nature. If you are strong, certain, purposeful, aware of the presence, you will automatically help everyone around you. But this certainty, this strength, this awareness only comes when the presence of the presence is realized. In this lies your strength, in this lies your power to help, to heal, and in this lies the power of healing, and in nothing else. If this realization is missing, then what does your thought amount to? If your thought is filled with doubt, with disease, with limitation, then your thought is of little value to yourself or another. If you weaken your thought with your feeling of negativeness, it can only produce its kind. Your thought must be charged with the essence of the presence from within, then results are sure, because thought reproduces itself in exact proportion to the realization of the one who is thinking. We are told that there are two trees in the garden of the soul. One is the tree of life and the other is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We are told to cling to the tree of life, for this is our salvation. The meaning is plain. The tree of life has a real existence, its roots being eternal, while the tree of knowledge of good and evil is relative, and has its roots only in man's mind. When we see this, we know that which is real and eternal, and that which is changeable and relative, that which we can depend upon and that which we cannot depend upon. One is divine and the other is human. Spontaneous action to help is always beautiful, but if it is not sustained with the real quality of the presence, the aid is not complete. Time and space to the one that truly lives in the presence does not exist, neither is there any fear of death or sickness for the one who is aware of eternity in the present. If you are all the time living in hope and fear, and not fully concentrated in the present which is eternal, then your thought is weakened by your attitude of mind towards sickness and death. The quality of your thought must be effortless in the knowing that you and the presence are one and the same. For the presence has individualized itself and you are this individualization, then the individual becomes the presence when this is realized. But if you are all the time entangled in the idea of whether you are helping or not helping, or whether you are getting results or not getting results, you are caught up in the mental struggle that is not filled with the presence. The presence is present in everyone, and this is the source of your healing. Therefore you have to realize the presence in which there is no separation, and not the projection of thought to the individual with a background of sickness in mind, for this is the tree that has its roots only in man's mind and has no real existence like the tree of life has, which is the presence. Thus you will readily see, if you do not really understand that love, life and health is the only reality, and still believe that sickness, fear and death has a real existence, you do not get results. Jesus the Master was aware of the presence always. His words were, "Your sins are forgiven, arise and walk," showing that the presence alone had any real existence. This was the effortless and automatic projection of the healing forces charged with the presence, which contained the power to dissolve all conditions. What is necessary for you to understand is that the presence is present, is always present, and this fulfills the law of thought projection. It is knowing the truth that counts, not merely sending thoughts of healing which are filled with uncertainty. The statement of the Master, "I and the Father are one, it is the Father who forever remaineth within me is performing his own deeds," shows that the presence is always present in the individual. I cannot do better than relate some of the work done by the Master to emphasize the importance of what I say. Jesus traveled up and down the country healing and teaching, and news of his wonderful healing power spread far and near. As he reached Capernaum, a man named Jairus, an eminent member of the church and the community, came to him and beseeched him to heal his little daughter aged 12 years, who had been given up by the physicians as incurable, and what I am going to say will reveal the true meaning of the presence. Jesus was healing at the time when Jairus approached him, and because of the father's grief, Jesus paused in his teaching and turned towards the house where the little girl lay. One could imagine the throng of people that followed him to see this, another miracle, so everyone was jostling one another and pressing closely around the Master. The Master's mind was made up. He was sure, purposeful, the realization of the presence was at its height. His whole being was charged with the life force to be released at any moment. When he felt someone touch his garment in search of healing, he immediately perceived what had happened, for he felt the stream of living force flow from him, and he knew that someone had received it. He turned round and said, "Power has been drawn from me. Who touched my garment?" Now it was obvious that many had touched his garment, but only one had claimed the power of healing. So his garment was touched in a certain way, and the power flowed towards the one who sought it so fervently. At that moment the woman was healed, and his words were to her a benediction, "Thy faith hath made thee whole," for he knew her mental attitude towards him. It is the presence that you must realize and feel, so that at any moment those who are in ignorance of the truth, who are eagerly seeking, can have it. Their faith will make them whole, their faith being their capacity to receive. Many are caught up with their little gods, their little ceremonies, with their methods and their separate beliefs, and fears lest they commit a mortal sin. They are afraid to step out of their cages and seek freedom and life. They are steeped in their illusions, claiming these to be knowledge. It is because they do not know the real, the presence, that these illusions are realities to them. I must complete the story of the healing of the little girl. So as Jesus came near the house, the servants and relatives came running out to exclaim in their sorrow, mingled with a certain amount of resentment, because the healer had not arrived sooner, that the little girl had died. Jairus the father broke down at this terrible news, coming at the greatest moment of his hope. Jesus, on seeing his great grief, turned to him and said, "Jairus, have faith, believe with all your heart, and the presence of God will be revealed to you." Here is the instruction from the Master himself: believe with all your heart in the presence of God. Jesus then called 3 of his disciples, Peter, James, and John, and went inside the house. His first act was to send all the weeping family and the wailing neighbors outside, for they were of little help, for they believed in sickness and death. Then he took the little girl's hand in his own, and the strangest thing began to happen. The little chest began to swell with life's breath, and the child's cheeks began to flush with life's bloom, and she opened her eyes with a wondering look. She gazed into the eyes of Jesus. The presence had met the presence. His disciples were also amazed, and the throng that followed him could hardly believe their own eyes. But these were his words: "If you will only believe in me and what I teach you, these things you see me do, you will also do. Even greater things shall ye do, and anything you ask in my name the Father will give you." His name was the presence. The same life in the Father was being expressed in the Son. This is the presence that is ever present everywhere, not only in the visible but in the invisible. The presence does not die, nor does it fade away. The assurance of the mighty power and the understanding with all your heart that the presence is everywhere is the proof of healing. Healing becomes the dissolving action of the illusion held in man's mind, but few can see it. They cling to the recognition of the trouble while they believe that they do the healing. This is purely separation, which is the great illusion. Understanding and love are the highest achievements. The world is ourselves, and the world changes with a change in us. So above all else we must realize the presence that is ever present everywhere. This in itself is healing. Benediction. O divine presence, whoever remains invisible yet expressing thyself in visible form, I see only one who becomes many and still remains one. It is thy presence alone that will loosen the entanglements of our self-woven net of illusion. Thy presence is revealed in the flower of humanity. May each one awaken to their oneness with thee, and thy love will lead them to thy bosom, our eternal home, O beloved one. My peace and my love remain with you. Yours sincerely, 𝗦 MacDonald-Bayne.